Hey, it's Bryan Wright with ICCF, and coming up right now is the power of asking better questions. The power of asking better questions. Let me ask you this question to start off with. As leaders, what do we really want to accomplish? What do we really want to accomplish? Of course, we want to have production, but how do we get to that better, more efficient production in our organization? And the two things that I've learned to identify is I want to, number one, duplicate myself. In other words, I want people to be able to do what they need to do without always having to come and ask me all the time what needs to happen. I don't want them waiting, I want them producing. But then in the process of that, the second thing that I want is I want the people that I'm leading and myself to have better resolve. In other words, I want them to have their own personal revelation and resolve to get those things done. And we can accomplish both of those things better by asking better questions. And so there's a power of asking better questions. Let's look at a couple of questions about this and some things to do to become better at this in our leadership ability. Someone who has not developed their skill of asking better questions will face problems like this. People won't be attached to their vision. People will wait to be told what to do. The people will not be solution-minded. And the people that they're leading will not grow at the proper pace. Now, did Jesus ask questions? Because one of the things that we see in Jesus was he was able to lead for just a few short years, but literally he changed the world. And he asked questions all the time. He asked questions like this: which is easier? He said, who do you say that I am? He asked the people, he went to feed the 5,000, what do you have in your hand? One of the things he said, whose face is on the coin? And he even asked the question, the baptism of John, was it from heaven or was it from men? Now, what is he doing here? He's drawing the people that he is leading to their own revelation and their own resolve, so that when he was not present, the leaders that he had developed and duplicated of himself were able to continue this process even while he was gone. He had duplicated himself and deposited in them a resolve to get the job done. Now, the results is from this that they had their own resolve and their own revelation. They were not waiting on Jesus to tell them that. He had helped deposit that into them. And by their own revelation, they weren't just adopting someone else's revelation, but that revelation became personal to them. This personal revelation moved the people into their own personal discipline, and it helped connect them to the vision that Jesus had, to the vision that the leader had. So, by asking questions, they had their own resolve and revelation. The resolve and revelation became personal and moved them into a place of discipline and connection to that vision. This is starting to answer what we want to do as leaders. This personal habit that the follower had of answering questions also helped to develop a habit of looking for solutions instead of waiting for the leader to give them every answer. They started looking for those answers and didn't wait to just be told what to do. Now, how do you and I become a better asker of questions? What are some things that we can do? Well, number one, we can purpose in our mind to be a better asker of questions. Lord, let me get better at asking questions. Help me to ask better questions. We can purpose ourselves and become intentional to do that. The second thing is this. Many times leaders, when they get into the boardroom, they're sitting around the table, they will talk, they will tell. And what happens is they shut down the creativity of their team, whereas if they listened and asked questions and listened, they would draw and mine out the goodness from their team. One of the things that we can do to become better at this is ask ourselves, what question will draw this person to their own resolve and to the right conclusion? What's a question that I can ask that will help them see and draw themselves to that proper conclusion and that resolve? Start by asking questions that everyone can agree on. Start by asking questions that are easy to become the standard and the foundation for future questions. So, for example, if I'm in a church as a pastor, I can ask an easy question of doctrine that everybody would agree to. Now, based on this standard that we all agree to, I'll ask the question for the next step and the next step and build a foundation that that person can have resolve on and can stand firm on that foundation of the answers to those questions. I want to then move into questions that will reveal the heart, will reveal character. I want to ask questions that reveal motivations and intentions and help the group and the people that I'm leading, including myself, to face reality and not cover up the problems. By moving along this line of questions, I'm developing a foundation and a standard, and I'm moving into the conclusions and solutions that this group or organization needs to get to. And then, as I ask better questions, I can purpose myself that I'm going to become a better asker of questions so that I can also model that and duplicate that into my organization, into my teams. I'll model those things. Where's a great starting point? This is one of the best starting points that I've found for asking good questions. After you have an event or something like that, learn to ask these 4 questions. Number 1, what was supposed to happen? Number 2, what actually happened, right? And number 3, what makes up the difference between number 1 and 2? What was supposed to happen and what actually happened? And the 4th question is, what can we do to improve in the future? What can we do to improve in the future? These are 4 questions that you can ask after an event, and it will start you on the process of asking questions, get people in the habit of answering this. And when I'll say this to the leader, when you ask these questions, don't you answer them. Wait for your team to answer them. Listen to what they heard and what they saw in that event. Listen and don't just spout out what we know, but let's listen and hear what they know, and they'll get in the habit of answering those questions and coming to their own resolve. As we grow in our ability to ask better questions, we will see the proper type of growth in our team, in our production, and in our ability to lead. And now here's my final question. What did you learn today that you are getting ready to implement right now? Are you going to be a better asker of questions from this time forward? And have you already set your heart to ask better questions? I am Bryan Wright with ICCF, and ICCF exists to help bring biblical leadership to pastors, CEOs all over the world. Every single week on YouTube, you can go to YouTube and search for ICCF, and you will see that we have weekly leadership keys that come out every week to help people grow in their leadership ability. You can also go to the website, iccf.us. You can find the link to YouTube right there. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you get a notification when the new tip comes out. You'll also see on the website where we have forums that happen all over the world where leaders will come together and grow in that ability, and also conferences on a regular basis where people will come together, grow in their leadership ability, and grow in their influence that God wants them to have. That's what ICCF is. We will come and help you, and we do all of this at no charge to you. We just want to serve the world by serving you, the person that God has called to be a leader. We hope that you'll join with us. Join us and go to iccf.us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you next week on the Leadership Keys from ICCF.
There's a breakthrough harvest for those that have been in intense battles and overwhelming situations. You're coming out this year.